She was the voice that could silence a stadium, the queen of genre-bending brilliance. But behind the spotlight, Linda Ronstadt harbored a list of betrayals that cut deeper than any lyric she ever sang. In this video, we look into the 7 musicians who crossed paths with Ronstadt in ways that left lasting scars. From backstage betrayals to public humiliations, these stories reveal the untold tensions in the world of rock and roll. Don Henley, the Eagles. Number 7. Don Henley and the Eagles. Before the Eagles filled stadiums, they were just a pair of unknown musicians, Don Henley and Glenn Frey, trying to find their place in Los Angeles. Linda Ronstadt changed everything for them. In 1971, she needed a backing band for her upcoming tour and decided to give these two a chance. Henley played drums and sang harmonies. Frey played guitar. The lineup also included Randy Meisner and Bernie Leadon. That tour became the foundation for one of the biggest rock bands in history, the Eagles. Ronstadt didn't just give them a job, she gave them exposure, direction, and credibility. At that time, she was a rising star with a strong reputation in country rock. Industry insiders paid attention to her band. She helped them build contacts, and by the end of the tour, Frey and Henley had decided to branch out and form their own group. Ronstadt even supported that decision. She didn't try to keep them. She let them go, and even suggested record executives check them out. The Eagles exploded quickly. By 1973, they had a hit with Take It Easy. Soon came Desperado, One of These Nights, and Hotel California. While Ronstadt continued her successful solo career, the guys she helped launch became stadium giants. But things soured behind the scenes. Henley's attitude shifted. Fame changed the tone. He reportedly became more controlling and dismissive of Ronstadt's approach to music. In an interview during the mid-70s, Henley made a subtle but pointed remark that Ronstadt's style was safe and too polished. For Ronstadt, who valued artistry and musical growth, that comment stung. She felt disrespected, not just because she gave him a chance, but because he overlooked the influence she had on the band's early sound. What truly caused a rift, though, was what happened offstage. Ronstadt discovered Henley had been using her name to access venues and events she was not part of. He allegedly demanded guest access to a tour she headlined, without her permission. When she found out, she revoked all his backstage credentials. From that point on, Henley was no longer welcome at any of her shows. Industry insiders said Ronstadt handled the issue quietly but firmly. She didn't call out Henley in the press. She didn't create drama. She simply cut ties. For someone who had built her brand on grace and professionalism, it was a line she rarely crossed. This time, though, she made an exception. Here's the insight many people miss. Ronstadt was more than just a singer. She had influence behind the scenes, especially in shaping talent. Before the Eagles found their sound, they were molded by Ronstadt's touring style, stage discipline, and vocal layering techniques. Frey even said later that they learned the value of harmony from watching her record vocals. That's a major part of what made the Eagles sound so iconic. But Henley never acknowledged that influence publicly. Instead, he seemed to distance himself from the early days, possibly to build the Eagles' brand as independent and self-made. Ronstadt never demanded credit, but those who knew the full story saw the pattern. Ronstadt's producer at the time, John Boylan, was instrumental in introducing Frey and Henley to her. That connection, it wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment choice. Morrison behaved in a way that matched a pattern. By 1968, his substance and alcohol use was getting worse, and he often caused problems at concerts. But this episode was different because it involved another artist who refused to be a part of his on-stage drama. Morrison used Ronstadt as a prop in his show rather than as a friend. Ronstadt did not make a fuss in the backstage area after the show. People knew her for keeping her cool in public. But people who knew her well said that what happened really shook her. Even though she didn't say much about it, her team made it clear that she wouldn't be performing near Morrison again. She did not need that kind of chaos as her career grew. The performance was just one part of the problem. A few weeks later, Morrison made things worse. In a radio interview, he made fun of Ronstadt by calling her sweet but spineless. He said her music didn't have any fire and that she didn't stand up for herself. This was rude and touchy at the same time. At the time, it came from someone much more famous and powerful. The remark spread, and Ronstadt's confidence dropped. But she still didn't answer in public. In no way did she act that way. Instead, she kept building her catalog and reputation one show at a time. But she had the Morrison moment, and some say it changed how she did business in the music business. From then on, Ronstadt became more aware of her stage presence and personal limits. She became more careful about choosing her partners and avoided tours with musicians who were known to act recklessly. This is the most important thing that most people don't know. Ronstadt was already getting respect in the business behind the scenes. Managers and producers saw her as more than just another young voice. They saw her as a professional with long-term prospects. After the Morrison event, some of those insiders paid her more attention. They liked how she dealt with it. No drama, just distance. It made her feel good about living in a selfish world. In the meantime, Morrison kept spinning. He began drinking too much, and his stage stumbling got worse. After less than 3 years, he died at the age of 27. Even though he left a mark on rock history, things that happened with Ronstadt remind us that despite being brilliant, in 1979, Linda Ronstadt had already established herself as one of the most versatile voices in popular music. She moved across genres with ease: country, rock, pop, and ballads, earning respect from fans and fellow musicians. But not everyone appreciated her polished sound. Elvis Costello, a rising figure in the punk and new wave scenes, made that painfully clear during an awkward moment in Cleveland. The setting was a major festival, where Ronstadt was one of the headliners. She had just finished a strong set, but backstage, Costello dismissed her performance to reporters, calling it background music for brunch. The remark wasn't just uncalled for, it was a calculated jab. Costello represented the raw, rebellious edge of punk. Ronstadt, with her refined voice and crossover success, didn't fit that mold. To Costello, she was part of the establishment he wanted to tear down. Ronstadt was made aware of the comment and chose to confront him. When she approached him backstage, Costello reportedly doubled down, delivering another insult before walking away. He didn't explain himself or apologize. For Ronstadt, who had dealt with criticism before, this one stung more because it came from a fellow artist during a shared event. It was disrespect, plain and simple. But the story didn't end there. What's not often discussed is what came next. That moment pushed Ronstadt to reconsider the boundaries of the artistic community. She had long been an advocate of open collaboration. She welcomed different voices, even from opposite genres. But this incident made her more cautious. She began declining events where confrontational artists were present. It wasn't fear, it was strategy. She wanted to protect her peace and focus on the music. Meanwhile, Costello's comments followed him for years. Though he built a successful career, he gained a reputation for having a sharp tongue and a dismissive attitude toward artists who didn't match his ideals. That image stayed with him throughout the early part of the 1980s. In later interviews, he tried to explain his younger self as being immature and overly critical, but the damage from that Cleveland insult lingered. Behind the scenes, Ronstadt's team debated issuing a public response. Ultimately, they chose silence. Ronstadt didn't address it in interviews, didn't comment in liner notes, and didn't take shots in return. Instead, she focused on her work. She recorded an album of traditional Mexican music shortly after, breaking from the typical pop cycle and proving that her musical vision was always her own. That move earned her both critical praise and new audiences, many of whom respected her for taking risks others wouldn't. One insight often missed in this story is that Ronstadt's ability to brush off public jabs without getting pulled into feuds was rare in an industry built on egos. She showed that professionalism could be louder than a comeback. While other artists fought through headlines, she built a career that stood the test of time. That's not just character, that's power. Legacy. Years later, Costello softened his stance on many artists he once criticized. While he never issued a direct apology to Ronstadt, he acknowledged that his early career was marked by arrogance. Still, the incident in Cleveland remained a footnote that defined the kind of respect, or lack of it, that existed between two very different corners of the music world. This wasn't just a rude comment at a festival. It was a moment that highlighted the culture war between polished artistry and punk rebellion. Ronstadt became a symbol of how to respond to criticism without sacrificing dignity. She didn't need to fight back in public. Her next album did it for her. And that's what makes this moment matter more than people realize. It showed the contrast between noise and legacy, and Ronstadt's choice to build the latter. Paul Simon. Number 1. Paul Simon's cold dismissal. In 1982, the music world buzzed with the idea of a collaboration between two iconic artists, Linda Ronstadt and Paul Simon. Ronstadt, with her powerful voice and eclectic style, and Simon, known for his unique songwriting and poetic lyrics, seemed like a match made in musical heaven. Fans eagerly awaited what was promised to be a memorable duet, but what should have been a harmonious partnership quickly turned sour. The story begins in the recording studio. Simon, famous for his perfectionism, was heavily involved in the creative process. His desire for control over every detail quickly became apparent. Ronstadt, known for her own strong musical vision, found herself at odds with Simon's constant critiques. Every suggestion she made was met with resistance, and his method of directing the session felt more like micromanaging than collaborating. What should have been an exciting joint effort instead became a stressful and uncomfortable situation for Ronstadt. The recording session was long and filled with tension. Simon, determined to maintain control, pushed Ronstadt to adjust her natural style to fit his specific vision. Ronstadt, who had always valued her independence and creative input, began to feel stifled. It wasn't just about the music, it was about respect. For Ronstadt, this wasn't just an artistic disagreement. It was a matter of dignity. Simon's controlling behavior, coupled with his inability to acknowledge her creative input, was a direct contrast to what she believed in as an artist. For Ronstadt, the experience was a clear signal that she wouldn't work with Simon again, no matter how tempting the opportunity. This incident was a turning point for Ronstadt, not just in her career, but in her understanding of the music industry. She had already been through numerous collaborations with artists who respected her voice and vision. But this was different. Paul Simon's cold dismissal was a reminder of the delicate balance between artistic collaboration and personal integrity. One often overlooked detail is that this failed collaboration highlighted a recurring theme in Ronstadt's career, her ability to walk away from situations that didn't serve her. She didn't need to engage in public arguments or release a statement about Simon's behavior. Instead, she simply chose to remove herself from the situation and moved forward with her career, confident in her own abilities. It was a quiet strength, the kind that didn't require confrontation to prove her point. Simon, on the other hand, continued to enjoy success, but his reputation as a difficult and controlling artist became more widely recognized. For many, his behavior during the Ronstadt collaboration was just another example of his notorious perfectionism. But for Ronstadt, it served as a reminder of her value as an artist and her right to be respected in every collaboration. The missed duet between Paul Simon and Linda Ronstadt stands as a cautionary tale in the music world. It's a reminder that artistic collaboration is about more than just talent. It's about mutual respect, creative freedom, and knowing when to walk away from a project that no longer serves you. For Ronstadt, this experience strengthened her resolve to only work with those who recognized her worth and treated her as an equal.